It was the kind of love story people envied. Danielle Rivers and Marcus Rivers were the couple everyone admired. High school sweethearts turned power duo. He, a charming tech entrepreneur with a multi-million-dollar startup. She, a beautiful former nurse turned philanthropist, known for her soft smile and gentle heart. They lived in a sleek lakefront mansion in North Carolina, always hosting charity galas and Sunday brunches. To the outside world, they had it all: love, money, purpose. But behind the expensive wine and filtered Instagram smiles was a darkness no one could see, until one stormy November morning, when Marcus was found dead in their home office. A single gunshot wound to the head, the gun still clutched in his hand. The police initially ruled it a suicide, but they had no idea that this was only the beginning. Danielle was distraught. Her sobs were the kind that made seasoned detectives uncomfortable. She wore black for weeks, clutching Marcus's wedding ring on a chain around her neck. At the funeral, her eulogy left everyone in tears. "I lost my husband, my best friend, my forever," she whispered, barely holding herself up. No one questioned anything. Why would they? She was the perfect widow. But then, the cracks started showing. 3 weeks after Marcus's death, his sister, Clarissa, received a strange call from his accountant. There had been unusual activity in Marcus's private investment account. $500,000 had been transferred out after his death. Clarissa, never quite trusting Danielle, brought it to the attention of detectives. Still, there was no hard proof. But what happened next flipped the entire investigation. Marcus's autopsy revealed something strange. The trajectory of the bullet didn't match a typical self-inflicted wound. It entered from an angle too awkward for suicide. And then came the surveillance footage. Danielle had claimed she was out volunteering at a women's shelter that morning. But the cameras in their own home showed her entering Marcus's office just 30 minutes before the gunshot was heard. She left 10 minutes later, calmly, wiping her hands on a white towel. Detectives now had a different theory. Marcus Rivers didn't take his own life. He was murdered, and the prime suspect? The grieving widow everyone adored. As investigators dug deeper, a chilling web of secrets unraveled. Danielle, the picture-perfect wife, had been living a double life. For the past year, she'd been having an affair with a man named Joel Cartwright, Marcus's business partner. Joel, ambitious and greedy, wanted Marcus out of the picture. But there was more. Marcus had recently found discrepancies in their company's finances. Joel had been embezzling millions. Marcus was about to expose him. And Danielle, well, she stood to lose everything if Joel went down. Her lavish lifestyle, her influence, her reputation. Here's the tragic twist. Marcus knew. A week before his death, he had secretly updated his will. He was planning to divorce Danielle. He had even recorded a video on his laptop, explaining everything. But that video disappeared the day after his death. Guess who had access to the laptop? Danielle. When police confronted her, she stayed calm. Too calm. "I love my husband. I have nothing to hide." But the search warrant said otherwise. In a hidden folder on an old flash drive in her closet, they found fragments of deleted files, partial logs of conversations with Joel, plans, discussions of timing, of how to make it look like a suicide. They had enough. Danielle and Joel were arrested. The trial was one of the most sensational in state history. Packed courtrooms, news cameras, public outrage. Danielle sat in the courtroom, dressed in all black, still wearing Marcus's ring around her neck. Clarissa took the stand. Her voice trembled as she described her brother's kindness, his genius, and how he never saw the betrayal coming. "He loved her," she whispered. "He trusted her. That was his biggest mistake." The jury didn't take long. Danielle Rivers was found guilty of first-degree murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Joel received a similar sentence. As she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, reporters shouted, "Danielle, do you feel any remorse?" She didn't answer. She just smiled. Justice, many said, was finally served. But behind the headlines, behind the verdict, behind the cell bars, the darkness hadn't lifted completely. Because just 1 week after her conviction, a letter arrived at Clarissa's doorstep. It was postmarked the day before Marcus died. Inside was a USB drive. and on it, a full video recording. Marcus's final message. In it, Marcus sits at his desk, his eyes red, his voice trembling. I don't know if this video will ever be seen, but if it is, and something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. I'm not suicidal. I'm scared, and I think Danielle is going to do something terrible. Clarissa froze. The timestamp proved it was recorded 24 hours before his death. But there was one more file on the drive, encrypted, titled The Real Secret. And when Clarissa opened it, what she found changed everything. You thought the truth had been uncovered, because Danielle wasn't the only one hiding something. Not by a long shot. When Clarissa Rivers plugged in the USB drive Marcus left behind, she thought she'd find closure. Instead, she found a deeper mystery. Marcus's final video was a chilling cry for help. But the second file, encrypted and labeled The Real Secret, held something darker, something no one was prepared for. Clarissa didn't sleep that night. She sat in her kitchen, laptop open, staring at the file. At 3:43 a.m., using an old password she remembered Marcus once used for his high school journals, Riverstorm 17, the encryption unlocked. What she uncovered was not just evidence. It was a revelation that threatened to unravel everything. Inside the folder were dozens of scanned documents, bank statements, hidden email threads, and one audio file labeled Play If I Die. Marcus had been tracking not just Joel and Danielle, but someone else, a third player, someone close, very close. If you're hearing this, I'm likely gone. Danielle and Joel, they're not the only ones trying to destroy me. There's someone else, someone who knows every move I make, who's been in the shadows, watching, manipulating. And if I'm gone, it means they succeeded. I couldn't tell anyone, not even Clarissa. Not yet, but I've left a trail, one that leads to the truth. Clarissa's heart pounded. Who else could Marcus have been talking about? And then she saw it, a receipt, a transfer of $50,000 from Marcus's business account, dated 2 years ago, to a name she hadn't heard in a long time. Rebecca Langston, her ex-best friend, a woman who vanished from their lives nearly 3 years prior, after a brutal falling out with Danielle. But why was Marcus sending her money? Clarissa brought the information to the DA. Danielle and Joel were already behind bars. But now, the case wasn't closed. Detectives began retracing Rebecca Langston's steps. The last known address led to a cabin in Asheville. It was abandoned. Inside, a corkboard full of photographs, string, scribbled notes. At the center, a photo of Marcus Rivers. With red ink written across it, they all lied. Rebecca had been investigating Marcus or protecting him. Neighbors reported seeing her weeks before Marcus's death, pacing the property, shouting on the phone, warning someone to stay away from the house. One said she screamed, "She's going to kill him, and you're letting it happen." Detectives were now chasing a ghost. Rebecca Langston had disappeared again, but her notes, handwritten and chaotic, pointed to something bigger. A name kept appearing. Victor Hale, a private investor, silent partner in Marcus's tech company. But Victor wasn't just an investor. He was Danielle's first husband, a man presumed dead. Yes, Danielle was married once before, at 19, to Victor Hale. And according to court records, sealed and buried, Victor had a history of violence, fraud, and psychological abuse. But here's the thing. Victor died in a boating accident off the Florida Keys 10 years ago. Or so everyone thought. Because now, new surveillance from 3 months before Marcus's murder showed a man matching Victor's description meeting with Joel outside a dive bar in Charlotte. Marcus didn't know Victor was alive, but Rebecca did, and she had been trying to warn him, trying to piece together the puzzle before it was too late. She believed Danielle never really left Victor, that her marriage to Marcus was just a setup, that the whole thing, the affair, the embezzling, the murder was orchestrated by him, a puppet master hidden in plain sight. Danielle and Joel weren't the masterminds. They were pawns. Victor Hale was back, and he wanted everything Marcus built. Rebecca's last note, scribbled on the back of a photo of Danielle and Victor together. He promised her they'd rise again. All she had to do was kill Marcus. Clarissa couldn't stay silent anymore. She demanded Danielle be questioned again, this time about Victor. At first, Danielle refused to speak. But when she was shown the surveillance photo of Victor and Joel, her mask cracked. She looked up at the detectives and whispered, "I don't know where he is." But her hands trembled, and then she said something that chilled everyone in the room. "I thought he was dead." Was she lying? Or had Victor faked his death to control Danielle from the shadows? Danielle begged for protection. "He's not done," she said. "He's never done." She agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence, but only under one condition. No cameras, no press, and no police escort. Why? Because if Victor knows I talked, he'll kill me next. The DA had no choice but to agree. Danielle's new testimony blew the entire case wide open. She claimed Victor resurfaced 4 years ago and threatened her. Promised to ruin her, expose her secrets, unless she helped him take over Marcus's empire. He used Joel as leverage. Promised him a cut of the company, offshore accounts, freedom from debt. All Danielle had to do was gain Marcus's trust. Marry him. Keep him just distracted enough. And when Marcus got too close to the truth, end it. Danielle said she never meant to kill him, that it was supposed to be staged, a scare. But Joel panicked, pulled the trigger. But the irony? Joel wasn't the one who fired the fatal shot. A second bullet casing was found under the floorboards during a recent renovation of Marcus's office. One with Victor Hale's fingerprints. And the trajectory? Perfect match. Victor had been in the house that day. Marcus never stood a chance. Now, the manhunt began. Victor Hale, officially declared dead in 2015, was now wanted for conspiracy to commit murder, identity fraud, and racketeering. Interpol got involved. But Victor had vanished again. No digital footprint, no credit cards, no passport. It was as if he never existed. Until Clarissa received a package. Inside was a black velvet box. No note, just a wedding ring. Marcus's ring. The one Danielle had worn around her neck in prison. But now it was here, with fresh blood smeared on the inside. And beneath it, a slip of paper. One line, written in red ink. Widows lie, but ghosts never forget. There's something unnerving about a dead man sending messages from the grave. The black velvet box. Marcus's wedding ring, freshly smeared in blood. The cryptic note, widows lie, but ghosts never forget. Clarissa's hands trembled as she held the ring. Was it a warning? A threat? Or worse, the signature? Because if Victor Hale was truly alive, it meant he'd been watching all along. Police scanned every inch of Clarissa's property. No sign of forced entry. No fingerprints. No security footage of the delivery. Just a ghost who knew how to slip through the cracks. The package had been hand-delivered by someone who knew where Clarissa lived, where she slept. And that wasn't the worst part, because attached to the ring was a second item. A photograph of Clarissa, taken just 2 days before, outside the courthouse, smiling. Victor was watching her, and he was getting closer. Danielle, now under 24-hour surveillance at a federal safe house, was the only one who could confirm Victor's patterns, his habits, his threats. But 2 nights after Clarissa received the ring, Danielle vanished. No broken doors, no blood. Just her empty bed and an unlocked window, and a single feather on the pillow, eerily white, just like the ones from the pillows at Victor's Florida estate, before it burned down in 2015. Investigators searched surveillance from the surrounding area. A man in a long black coat was seen walking Danielle down a fire escape. Her face was calm, almost accepting. Was she kidnapped? Or was she going back willingly? Monroe didn't believe in ghosts. But Victor Hale? He believed in him now. He pulled Clarissa into the investigation. You were close to Marcus. Closer than anyone. He trusted you with this mess. And now, you might be our only shot at catching Victor. Clarissa wasn't afraid anymore. She was furious. They'd taken Marcus. They'd manipulated his love. They'd stolen his legacy. Now Danielle was gone, and Victor was toying with them. Clarissa began digging into Marcus's old files. Notes, sketches, voice memos, everything he'd ever documented about Danielle and Victor. That's when she found something strange. An audio file, distorted and choppy, labeled 333. The same time Marcus used to wake up every night in a cold sweat. He always said the house felt off at 3:33. In the audio, a voice whispered, "She was never yours. She belonged to me, and she always will." Then silence. Then a name whispered like a curse. Clarissa. It wasn't just Danielle anymore. Victor knew who Clarissa was, what she meant to Marcus. And now, she was in his sights. Days later, Clarissa found a journal Marcus had hidden inside the back of an old grandfather clock. Pages and pages of names. Dates. Places. Amounts. Marcus had been bribing people. Not out of corruption, but protection. Trying to shield Clarissa from the storm he saw coming. One name stood out, circled in red. Detective Joel Paxton, retired. A cop with ties to Victor's old Florida estate. Forced out after a botched arson investigation. Marcus had paid him $75,000. Clarissa tracked him down in a grimy motel just outside Tampa. He looked like he hadn't slept in years. "I told him to run," Joel muttered. "Told him Victor doesn't forgive betrayal." "Betrayal?" Clarissa asked. Joel lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Danielle and Marcus weren't Victor's first targets. Victor's first wife, Elena Hale, had vanished in 2006. Her body was never found, ruled as suicide, but Joel believed differently. She was going to leave him, he said. Take the money, expose him. The same pattern. Love, control, disappearance. History repeating itself. Joel leaned in close. "I saw Danielle once back then. With Victor. She was barely 20. Thought she was just a mistress. But she was more than that. She was the apprentice. Danielle hadn't just been manipulated. She'd been groomed. Victor didn't break her. He built her. And Marcus? He was the final test. The ultimate betrayal." Clarissa raced back home. Searched Danielle's old social media, backed up emails. And there it was. An old email thread between Danielle and EH. A monogram she now knew belonged to Elena Hale. Dated just weeks before Elena's disappearance. "He's going to kill me. You're the only one he listens to. You have to get out before you become what he is." And Danielle's response? "It's too late." Victor Hale had been sculpting his masterpiece for nearly 2 decades. Danielle, Joel, even Clarissa, they were all pawns in a far bigger, darker plan. But for what? Money? Power? Or something deeper? The FBI traced a signal from Danielle's burner phone. It pinged from a private island in the Caribbean. An island owned by a shell company connected to Marcus's former business accounts. Victor had used Marcus's empire as a front. A trap. For revenge. Clarissa boarded the plane with Agent Monroe. They had one shot. To find Danielle. To end Victor's reign. But just as they landed, a new video dropped online. Unlisted. Hidden. Sent only to Clarissa's private inbox. She clicked play. He sat in a dark room. Calm. Almost amused. "Hello, Clarissa. You've been busy." Behind him, tied to a chair, was Danielle. Bloodied. Barely conscious. Victor leaned in. She was always loyal. Until she wasn't. They always break, eventually. He smiled. "But you? You're different. You don't run. You fight." He held up something shiny. Marcus's ring. Then he whispered, softly, "Come find me." The screen went black. Victor Hale wasn't hiding. He was waiting. And Clarissa Rivers? She was going to walk into the lion's den. Because love may have started this war. But vengeance was going to end it. Love started it. Vengeance was fuel. But now it was war. Clarissa had crossed oceans and burned every bridge. To find answers. To hunt Victor Hale. But what she didn't know was that Victor wasn't just waiting. He'd set the board, and she was already in check. The air was thick with heat and dread. Clarissa and Agent Monroe crept through the dense jungle brush, guided only by flickering coordinates and half-truths. Rain pelted the leaves like static. Clarissa's voice was barely a whisper. "He wants me here. He planned this." Monroe nodded. "And that's why we hit him before he's ready." But Victor was always ready. And the island? It wasn't just a hideout. It was a mausoleum. A half-mile in, they found the compound. Concrete walls, armed guards, watchtowers, but there were no alarms. No searchlights, just silence, like they were expected. Inside the compound, candles burned in every window. Warm, inviting, deceptive. Victor knew how to seduce the eye while stabbing the heart. They breached the back gate, scaling silently under the cover of thunder. Inside, they found no captives. No Danielle. No Victor. Just something worse. A room, floor to ceiling, lined with photographs. Hundreds of them. Every moment of Clarissa's life. As a child. As a teen. With Marcus. Even from inside her bedroom. Victor had been watching her for years. In the center of the room was a table, laid with a single dinner plate, a wine glass, and an envelope. To the widow who wouldn't die. Inside was a note. Clarissa, you always did underestimate your part in the story. Marcus was never the hero. He was just the first act. Welcome to Act 2. And beneath it, a small vial, labeled only with a time. 3:33 a.m. Clarissa remembered Marcus's late-night terrors. The same time, the same haunting fear. It always comes at 3:33. Was this the moment he'd been warning her about? Clarissa heard something, boots scraping the tile. A trap. The guards had circled back. 10 of them, armed. Monroe shoved her down a hidden corridor. Run! Gunfire erupted. Clarissa sprinted through the darkness, the vial clutched in her hand. Behind her, silence. Monroe was gone. Clarissa had come to save Danielle. But now, she was running for her own life. Deeper into the lair of a man who had murdered from shadows and turned love into a loaded weapon. She found a locked iron door. On it, an old, tarnished plate that read, Elena Hale, 2006. It creaked open. Inside, a recording was playing. Victor's voice. Before Clarissa, there was Elena. Before Elena, there were others. They all thought they were special, but none of them understood the real story. Clarissa's eyes scanned the room. It was a replica of her own bedroom back home. Same mirror, same perfume, same cracked photo of her and Marcus. Victor had recreated her world, down to every horrifying detail. Then she saw it. Danielle, chained, barely conscious, eyes bloodshot. Clarissa rushed to her. Danielle coughed, a feeble whisper. Don't trust what you see. Clarissa hesitated. Victor, he's not just after revenge. He's rewriting the past. Clarissa snapped the chains and helped Danielle to her feet. But Danielle stopped her. There's something I have to show you. Something Marcus didn't know. Danielle handed her a flash drive from under a loose floor tile. Everything. His files. Victor's real plan. It's not just about you. It's about everyone Marcus touched. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the compound. Smoke. Screams. A voice rang out from the intercom. Checkmate, Clarissa. Victor. He knew they'd find Danielle. He'd wanted them to, because now he could erase it all. Clarissa and Danielle dashed out as flames engulfed the walls. Clarissa uploaded the flash drive to a satellite server through her encrypted phone. The files were massive. Financial documents, psychological profiles, blueprints for manipulating, controlling, silencing. Victor hadn't just manipulated lives. He engineered them. Clarissa choked back fury. Marcus had tried to fight this and paid the price. Now she would finish it. But as they reached the shoreline, Danielle collapsed. Her hands were shaking. The vial, she gasped. Clarissa's blood ran cold. You drank it? Danielle nodded. I thought it was a sedative, but it's something else. She convulsed, eyes rolling back. Victor's voice played again, this time from Danielle's earpiece. You should have let her stay in the grave, Clarissa. Now she'll die like the rest. Clarissa held Danielle, screaming for help. The boat wasn't due for another 15 minutes. She was alone, but Danielle's hand reached up and gripped her wrist. Weakly, she whispered, Victor has a son. Clarissa froze. What? Danielle coughed blood. It's not over. He's training him. He's worse than Victor. And then, Danielle went limp. The moon glinted off the ocean as the boat lights finally appeared on the horizon. Clarissa had spent months hunting Victor Hale, and now she knew the true threat was still out there, and he was just getting started. But even worse, Victor had already disappeared again, leaving behind only a new note taped to the boat's steering wheel. Clarissa, you've played beautifully, but you still don't understand. The story isn't about the widow. It's about the heir. V. Somewhere in Eastern Europe, a boy no older than 15 sits in a dark room, sharpening a blade. Beside him, a photo of Marcus. And of Clarissa. A figure steps into the light. Victor Hale. You've seen what they do to family. Now it's your turn. The boy smirks. I'm ready. The war isn't over. Because monsters don't die. They evolve. When you lose everything, you either break or become the thing that broke you. Clarissa Hale had done both. And now, she stood at the edge of a story that began with a husband's murder and would end in a war no one saw coming. This wasn't about justice anymore. It was survival. It was legacy. And for Clarissa, it was vengeance. The bitter cold clung to Clarissa's coat as she stepped out of the black sedan. Her eyes scanned the towering structure before her. A reformed orphanage turned elite boarding academy, known for discipline, privacy, and the quiet enrollment of special students. Students like Nico, Victor Hale's son, the boy with Marcus's eyes. Danielle had been right. Victor hadn't just created a monster. He was raising one. Clarissa moved swiftly. This was a recon mission. No gunfire, no bodies, but war always leaves a trail. Inside, the corridors were lined with marble and silence. She passed by smiling faculty members, oblivious to the darkness beneath their institution. Or maybe not. Maybe they were part of it. She reached a door labeled Special Curriculum. And there he was. Nico, 14. Calm, calculating, eyes like glass. He was reading The Art of War. Clarissa froze. He looked up and smiled. You're late. Her breath caught. You know who I am? He nodded. You're the widow. My father talks about you all the time. A long pause. Then, he says you're the reason he stopped believing in love. Clarissa stepped into the room. What did he teach you, Nico? To lie? To kill? The boy tilted his head. He taught me to remember. Then he slid something across the desk. A worn photograph. Marcus, holding a newborn. Clarissa blinked. She'd never seen it before. He said Marcus was supposed to protect us. But he ran. Left us both. You and me. Her voice cracked. Your father's lying. Marcus didn't abandon you. He never even knew you existed. Nico looked down. I know. Clarissa was stunned. I found Marcus's journals. His letters. He tried to expose Victor. He was going to take you. Nico's eyes burned. But he never made it, did he? Silence filled the room. Then, Clarissa asked the question she feared most. Do you believe him? Do you want to be like him? Nico didn't answer. Instead, he said, he's dying. Clarissa's heart stopped. What? Leukemia. He is 6 months. Maybe less. She staggered back. All this time, Victor was running out of time, which made him more dangerous than ever. Nico stood. He's desperate. That's why he sent me. To finish what he started. Clarissa whispered. What did he start? The boy's voice was calm, erasing every trace of Marcus Hale. Marcus had once been a handler for an elite intelligence unit. He'd gone rogue to expose what Victor had built, an underground psychological operation training children as assassins under false identities. Victor called it the Lazarus Protocol. And Clarissa? She wasn't just a grieving wife. She was the last loose end. Clarissa knew what had to be done. She had to find Victor, end him, before Nico made his choice permanent. But then, a call from Agent Monroe. I found him. Istanbul. He's moving. Fast. Clarissa turned to Nico. You're coming with me. The boy blinked, then nodded. You'll need me to get close. Victor's final sanctuary was deep in the city, beneath an ancient mosque turned private vault. Clarissa and Nico slipped through security with forged credentials and forged comm. The vaults below were lit with gold chandeliers and red velvet carpet. At the center, Victor, older, pale, still dangerous. He looked up and smiled. Clarissa, you finally brought my son home. Clarissa raised her pistol. Not your son. Not anymore. Victor turned to Nico. You told her everything? The boy nodded. I told her the truth. Victor laughed, coughing blood into his silk handkerchief. The truth is a weapon, and you still don't know how to use it. He pressed a button. Guns dropped from the ceiling. Lasers flared. Doors sealed. Clarissa stepped in front of Nico. Victor watched, amused. Still protecting him? You don't even know what he's done. Clarissa froze. What are you talking about? Victor's smile widened. Nico gave me your location. He let you get this far. He was testing your loyalty. Her eyes darted to the boy. No, that's not true. Victor's voice was ice. He's my heir. You think a few tears and old photographs changed that? Clarissa turned to Nico, trembling. Tell me it's not true. The boy stared at her, unblinking. Then, I'm sorry. He pulled the gun from Clarissa's holster and aimed it at Victor. Victor's eyes widened. You little... Bang. The bullet hit Victor in the stomach. He collapsed, gasping. Nico walked to him. I read your letters. Your files. Everything you did. I'm not you. I never was. Victor's voice was fading. You're too late. The Lazarus Protocol is already in motion. I planted seeds everywhere. Clarissa dropped beside him. What seeds? Where? Victor coughed, bloody lips curled in a final grin. You'll find out soon enough. Tick-tock. His eyes glazed over. Victor Hale was dead, but his legacy was still alive. Interpol raided the compound. Shut it down. Clarissa was cleared. Nico was placed under protection. But Clarissa knew this wasn't the end, because just before the servers were seized, Clarissa saw it. File 001. Operation Gemini. Status. Active. Targets. Clarissa Hale. Nico Hale. Handler. Unknown. She'd kill the monster. But the system that built him? Still watching. Still working. Still waiting. And somewhere, a new handler had taken Victor's place. Someone smarter. Someone colder. Someone watching them both. Clarissa stood at Marcus's grave. Nico stood beside her. He died fighting for truth, she said softly. The boy nodded. I won't waste it. She looked at him. You sure about this? He nodded. I want to finish what he started. She handed him the flash drive. The Lazarus names. It starts here. As they turned to leave, a shadow watched from afar. A woman in a black coat. Phone to her ear. She's passed the drive to the boy, the woman said. A voice crackled back through the speaker. Good. Let them believe they're winning. The game has only just begun. The widow thought her war was over. But in the world Victor built, justice is just another illusion. And truth always comes at a cost.